But we need to continue. We need to integrate energy and telecommunication sector in the single market. We need to pursue our simplification agenda, and we need to invest more on innovation in the new sectors, AI, quantum computer. We need to invest more in skills, reskills, upskills, life learning. Then we need to have a next budget fit for this purpose. And of course, we need also to mobilize the European savings to support investments. And for this to conclude the Saving and Investment Union, it's very, very important. That's why today we will approve a very concrete measures with a concrete timeline to deliver our agenda by the end of 2027 at last, but with several measures that we need to adopt until the end of this year. Of course, nobody can ignore that we are facing challenging times on energy, and we need to address this. The current conflict in Iran shows once again that the best way to have a predictable and reliable horizon on our energy is to increase the homegrown production of energy. This is the only way to become autonomous, independent. That means to securize our energy system. For this, we need to pursue our energetic transition, and this is our main task. Of course, we need to do this, taking into account the specificity of different member states, the specificity of some economic sectors, that they are intensive in the use of energy, but we need to do this together, and never forgetting that we need to not only to protect our companies today, but we need also to ensure that the next generation continue to have a planet to live. But a part of the climate and environment goal, that's clear, that energy means security. And we cannot, and we need to build our own capacity to produce our own energy, because it's the only way to be secure. Finally, we will have the opportunity to meet with the Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres. The multilateral system is a basic instrument to protect the international rules-based order. And that's clear. There are no alternative of an international rules-based order, because the alternative is the war in Ukraine. The alternative is unfair competition on trade. Is the threat on the sovereignty in Greenland, is the threat to sovereignty in the other parts of the world. Then, if you want to preserve stability, if you want to preserve peace, we need to uphold the international law and underpin the multilateral system. And this meeting with Antonio Guterres is very important, not only to address the dramatic situation now in the Middle East, namely what's happening in Lebanon, that is dramatically, and also to never forget that it's urgent to mobilize the international community to support the Gaza population, because we need to clean the rebels, we need to ensure water supply, energy supply, emergency shield for people living in Gaza, because we are moving from a conflict to the other conflict, but unfortunately the war in Ukraine didn't stop. The situation in Gaza remains dramatically, and we need to address all of this. Thank you.
Last night we were celebrating, at least some of us. Oops. I helped the media. So you can't get a better service like this one. So last night some of us were celebrating, many of us actually, of European leaders were celebrating the 50th anniversary of the European People's Party. And it reminded us what a marvelous project Europe is. It was created after the Second World War to have peace. We did the enlargement 20 years ago to strengthen democracy. And we often forget that because we have the European Union, we are living in peace and in democracy. And when I look at the world today, this is even more important than ever before. So we should, first of all, think about what we have achieved and what we have to defend. And therefore, I'm very concerned about the world around us. But I'm very confident that Europe, the European Union, can find a positive solution to many of these situations. We have a very worrying situation in the Middle East. This has an impact on all of us in security terms, in energy terms. But again, we have to together to protect our people, to make sure that we help each other, we help and protect our populations, and that is what we are doing, and that is why it's very good that we see each other today to exchange views on how we can move forward. Again, protecting the European project as a project of peace, prosperity and stability. We seriously we condemn the attacks on the Gulf states. I mean, these are countries that are our partners. We know them well. We depend on them for fossil fuels, and we do not like them to be attacked by Iran or by anybody else. And we must make sure that there's a de-escalation in the region. We also have to think of the Iranian people. They have suffered for 40 years. This situation probably cannot be changed by force, but we nevertheless need to keep them in our mind and to support them so that they can freely decide by whom they are governed, and certainly that this dictatorship in Iran finds an end. So diplomacy and support for the Iranians, for the Iranian people, is very important. We should also not forget Ukraine. So we have both in the Middle East and in Ukraine a terrible situation. And again, Europe is there to support stability and peace. And we will continue to support Ukraine. I look forward to listening to President Zelensky later on. They need to get the financial support, the military support, the humanitarian support, and we will not forget them. And in general, of course, I hope we also find sufficient time to discuss competitiveness, because if we want to have peace, stability, we also need to have an economy that works, that brings about the prosperity for our people, and therefore we must make progress on the capital markets union, we must make progress on the simplification, we must make progress on the new idea of the 28th regime, a more simple corporate law for companies. And I'm convinced that the three institutions will make progress on that in the coming months. So a lot on the agenda, all is a little bit linked, and but again, Europe is a marvelous project, because without the European Union we would not have this peace and prosperity that we enjoy, but we want to spread it, and international law is of course necessary to have that peace and stability also around us, because without peace around us, our democracies, our stability, our peace is also threatened. We are not at war, but we are certainly not at a full speed peace as we would like to have it.
Wie wütend sind Sie auf Herrn Orban, dass schon wieder ein EU-Vorhaben?
I see the strengths of the European project, and I think that at 26, if somebody is blocking, we can always move forward. That's what we have done in the past, and we should focus on our strengths and not on the blocking factors.
Do you think there will be a solution before the Hungarian election?
I hope so. We will discuss that, and certainly we can support Ukraine also in the meantime this is something that probably will be solved in the near future. Like in every country, it is for the people to decide who should be their leaders. The Iranian people have been oppressed for a very long time. That's why we have introduced, as the European Union, sanctions against Iran. The Iranian regime is a terrible regime, and we should do everything to support the Iranian people to decide on their own future. We have that privilege, and we hope that others in the region around us also can have that privilege.
Should the European Union help the US in the Strait of Hormuz in exchange for financial aid for Ukraine from the US?
This is a conflict that we have not started. We have not been involved. None of the European countries have been involved, and we don't want to get drawn into a conflict that we have not been consulted about. We are against the Iranian regime, but if you start a war, you also have to see how you get out of that. Obviously, we are very worried about the situation that this creates. We want to have safe passage for the ships that are in the Strait of Hormuz, but we should be very careful not to be drawn into a conflict that might escalate. We are arguing in favor of de-escalation. For diplomacy, it's never too late for diplomacy.
Was kann heute beschlossen werden, um die
That depends on the length of the war, of the crisis. We see already now an impact on the prices, but for now we still have necessary reserves. It's also good that the summer is coming, so Europe needs less energy right now than it would need in the winter. And we are prepared, and we have also drawn the lessons from the last crisis due to the Russian invasion of Ukraine. So we know what to do if need be, and I think we will protect our people, but we are prepared. And I think it's again an important message to all of us to continue the production of renewable energy. I think a lot of countries, including my own, have made progress on that to become less dependent on fossil fuels. That we must continue independent of this war, but even more due to this terrible situation in the Middle East.
Was können Sie heute beschließen, um diese Energiepreise kurzfristig runterzubringen, also aus erneuerbarer Seite langfristig?
Ich glaube, man muss immer die langfristige Perspektive auch im Blick haben. Erneuerbare Energien sind absolut notwendig. Kurzfristig, glaube ich, sind die Maßnahmen vor allem auf nationaler Ebene zu suchen. In meinem Land, Luxemburg, haben wir diese Maßnahmen schon vor der Krise genommen. Wir haben die Steuern auf das Minimum gesenkt und wir haben die Netzkosten übernommen. Das hilft den Unternehmen, das hilft den Menschen. Und deshalb sind wir eigentlich schon als Luxemburg relativ gut vorbereitet. Und wenn noch notwendige Maßnahmen sind, dann, glaube ich, müssen sie gezielt dort eingesetzt werden, um den Leuten mit kleinen Einkommen zu helfen. Aber das sind in meinen Augen vor allem nationale Maßnahmen, die da spielen müssen. Vielen Dank.
Danke.
Today's Council, the first topic is about Ukraine. We should have eyes on Ukraine still fighting Russia for the freedom against strong enemy. The first thing is to talk about 90 billion loan, the pressure to keep on Hungary, not delivering the promised loan. Second one is about Russian fighters and combatants, because to be honest, right now Russia has more men under the arms than at the start of the war. And everybody in Europe can imagine that what would happen For example, if the war would stop right now, that would mean that those fighters, people who have a criminal background, who have killing experience, will be on the streets or on vacation in Europe, and we don't want that. We want to have them banned from Europe for good. So that means that we should change the visa rules, Schengen rules, that we won't have Russian fighters and everybody who have been assisting Russia to occupy or fight against Ukraine to be in Europe. This is the first topic. Second topic is about energy. Energy matters. That means that we need long time this kind of production. We need connections and everything, and we need stable prices also on ETS system. That probably will be a matter that we'll be talking about, because ETS 2 has been postponed also on our will, but ETS 1 and ETS system is also needing some kind of stability, so we are waiting for proposals and having our own. And third one is about competitiveness, because to be honest, European idea is to have a working one market, single market. But, for example, well-known ride-sharing, which everybody is probably using, everybody has tried it, has a different rules, different set of rules, not on the European level, but on local level also. Because, for example, in Estonia, you can use any company, for example, Bolt, and you can see the end price. But if you go to another country in Europe, you cannot see the end price. In another country in Europe, you need to have a garage for ride-sharing car. So that means that we have this kind of artificial barriers in one and single market which should be working, and everybody understands ride-sharing is simple business. So that means that also to get less rules, less bureaucracy, simple way of doing business and so on. So competitiveness is the base of European operations. So these probably will be the most important topics in this council, and this will be an interesting day. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
We have a long agenda today, of course, very important topics like energy and single market, but from my competencies, it is, of course, what is happening in the Middle East and Ukraine. So first on Middle East, the Iran's attacks on Qatar energy infrastructure create further chaos, and it's clear that we need an exit from this war, not escalation. And that's why I've been also doing the diplomatic outreach to Iran to find different solutions. To be very clear, I talked to the minister before the execution of the Swedish citizen, so I was not able to raise that, but in my future calls I will definitely do that, also raise all the issues that we have. We have United Nations here today, and we are also working closely with them to find a safe passage for the ships via the Strait of Hormuz, because it's really a problem for especially Asia as well as Africa, that the oil, gas, but also fertilizers and food does not move from the Strait of Hormuz because it's not safe at the moment. Then, of course, Ukraine we will discuss today, and the big question in the room is the support loan. How can we proceed with the support loan that was agreed already in December by the leaders, and it's really time to show our support to Ukraine, because the war in the Middle East is connected to the war in Ukraine, and unfortunately Russia is gaining from the war in the Middle East. So that's why, I mean, exiting or ending this war is equally important to have a solution also for Ukraine that is not complete surrender to Russia.
Do you think there will be a solution to the Canadian election?
Well, let's see. I'm not very optimistic, but I know that President Costa is really working hard to find a solution also with Viktor Orban.
Are there any alternatives to the lower parliament?
There are alternatives, but let's see how this goes, and really it also needs political courage from all of us.
Do you expect new information from the technical mission in Ukraine at the moment that you can put on the state?
Well, if that helps to have a safe passage also for Hungary to say that they agree, but they have already agreed. That's the problem. Now they are taking their agreement back, and we also have a clause in our treaties that we are cooperating in good faith, and this is definitely not one of them. But the question for us is how can we really force the implementation of the agreement that we made in December.
So how angry are leaders or also foreign ministers on Monday against Orban and Hungary?
Well, foreign ministers on Monday were very strong in really pushing Hungary to agree and also provide solutions, because if they have an issue with the oil, their neighbor Croatia can also provide this oil. So it was a constructive approach, but I guess, in the time of elections, people are not that rational.
Do you have a plan B, like maybe a coffee break from the store?
As I said, President Costa is working with solutions. I was talking to him yesterday as well, and let's see how we find a passage out.
The German foreign minister said we don't know if the war in the Middle East will be over because Israel and the US they didn't tell us anything. So do you know when this war will be over?
Well, yeah, I don't have a crystal ball to tell you when the war will be over. What is important is that for all of us in European Union, we want to see the end of this war. We definitely see the chaos that it's causing in the Middle East, but also the ramifications it has for the rest of the world. 85% of oil and gas that goes via the Strait of Hormuz goes to Asia, and we already see problems there. Also the same with fertilizers that African countries need. For example, Sudan, 54% of the fertilizers to Sudan come via the Strait of Hormuz. So we are working with our Gulf partners, also with Egypt, Jordan, to really find a solution that the parties could end this war. Yes, the discussions that we had on Monday with the foreign ministers were about our Operation Aspides, that is in the region already with the ships guarding the safe passage through the Red Sea. So the discussion was whether there is a wish to also expand this to operate in the Strait of Hormuz. There was no such wish because, the ministers were saying that we were not consulted. Some were even saying that we tried to convince parties not to start this war, and we don't know what are the objectives of this war, and also there is no international law basis. If you think about using the force, for example, there are two cases, which one is self-defense and the other one is under the UN Security Council resolution. As there is no such thing at this moment, the member states do not have an appetite to go to this war. For the Iranian people, we have always supported the Iranian people, the civil society, so that they can decide for their own future. Of course, the regime has been very oppressive. There's a lot of human suffering for the Iranians, but it has to be Iranians that are able to decide for their own future. Thank you very much.
a discussion primarily on competitiveness. That will be my first point, where we will ask for targeted deadlines, legislation that has content that can deliver to what our citizens are asking for right now, to what our industrial representatives and businesses need to grow and be competitive in Europe. I will also say that speed cannot come at the cost of democracy or legitimacy. Parliament will never be a rubber stamp, and therefore we take our role as co-legislator extremely seriously, as we've always done, but more importantly than ever now as we go into this very high-intensity legislative phase. I will also talk about the fact that geopolitics and competitiveness are in a way two sides of the same coin, with energy prices running at skyrocketing prices. We need to first of all recognise that the efforts that we made to accelerate our connectivity between grids, to make sure that we have predictability with regards to storage and reserves, these decisions actually have helped us to also be able to take into consideration the constant shocks that we are seeing right now, especially with the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. We will also make the point that if we want to be independent, we also need to address the short-term concerns of our citizens. Rising prices will have a direct impact on their bills. And decisions that we take today in the European Council will send the strongest of political messages that our economic strength right now will also go into the courageous decisions that we will take for citizens to feel that their leaders are taking into account their very, very daily and necessary and real concerns. Lastly, on Ukraine, our economic strength as Europe needs to go towards further investment of our security, and therefore our constant, unwavering support for Ukraine and the appeal for the 90 billion loan to be resolved and actually go towards helping Ukraine win this war is something that I will make very clear towards the end of my intervention. Excuse me, say it again? Well, for me it's very clear that if you say that you will commit to something, then that needs to be followed through. This has always been the spirit of the European Council. It is the spirit of loyal cooperation between institutions. The Parliament voted on the loan and the signature was made by the Council and the Parliament, and now we expect that to be followed through, and that is what will always be, I think, expected of everybody around the table. That's what we decide with it. Yes. Well, first of all, we will continue to ask for de-escalation. What we saw this morning happening over the last hours has a direct impact on the region, but also on Europe, not only in terms of security, but also in terms of rising prices that we see on energy sources that we are dependent on. So that is what we will continue to insist on, and we hope that a resolution is found. Yes? Well, there will be a meeting with opposition leaders in the European Parliament in April. What I can tell you also is that the Parliament led on listing the IRGC as a terrorist organisation in January, and that's why we welcomed the decision by the Council at Foreign Minister level at the time for that to be done. We also want to send a message of full solidarity with the people in Iran that have for 47 years asked for dignity, asked for liberty, asked for their life to be protected, and that is what we will continue to ask for and state for. Thank you very much.
ste? Puno vas je danas. Može? Mogu ja reći par riječi? Evo, nalazimo se na početku još jednog redovitog Europskog vijeća. Prije toga imali smo sinoć 50. obljetnicu Europske pučke stranke sa nizom naših povijesnih aktera, veterana, lidera europskih institucija i šefova vlada. Bilo je vrlo zanimljivo čuti njihove poruke i na neki način iskoristiti to veliko iskustvo za upravljanje krizama i za buduće iskorake na europskom planu. Također, današnji sastanak bit će vrlo bogat i važan sa aktualnim temama. Prije svega situacija na Bliskom istoku, njene posljedice za europsku sigurnost, za europsku energetsku situaciju, ekonomiju, socijalne prilike i sve ono što ovako visoki rast cijena nafte. Vidjeli ste da je danas barel nafte negdje oko $116. Prije početka rata bio je 71. Utjecaj rasta cijena nafte i na tržište plina. Vidimo da je i plin koji je bio prije početka rata negdje oko 41 euro, sada se približava između 55, 56, ide prema 60. Sve to u nekoj kasnijoj fazi ima svoje reperkusije i na cijene struje. Stoga je i u pripremi ovog Europskog vijeća, u razgovorima koje smo vodili sa Europskom komisijom, naznačeno da moramo iskoristiti naše iskustvo iz vremena ruske agresije na Ukrajinu, kada smo reagirali brzo, stavili snažan europski okvir i donosili nacionalne mjere koje su očuvale socijalnu koheziju, zaštitile građane, zaštitile gospodarstvo, brojne institucije u kontekstu rasta cijena energenata. Stoga ćemo danas raspraviti što sve možemo učiniti zajednički na europskoj razini, a što ćemo raditi na nacionalnoj razini. Ja sam već izvijestio jutros kolege o mjerama koje je Vlada Republike Hrvatske poduzela odmah prošlog ponedjeljka i u pogledu smanjenja rasta cijena supera, cijena eurodizela, cijena plavoga dizela, ukapljenog naftnog plina za spremnike za boce. Mislim da smo tu amortizirali ovaj prvi udar. Taj rok od 2 tjedna istječe u ponedjeljak. Mi ćemo u ponedjeljak ponovo održati sjednicu vlade i ponovo reagirati kako bismo ovaj sada više nego očit trend rasta cijena nafte koji bi se prelio na rast cijena derivata ponovo limitirali što je više moguće u cilju zaštite naših građana i normalnog funkcioniranja hrvatskog gospodarstva. Pritom se vodimo sa dva temeljna načela: osigurati sigurnost opskrbe naftnim derivatima i drugo, osigurati priuštivost cijene. U tom pogledu vidim da su mnoge zemlje krenule tim putem. Evo primjerice, naša odluka bila prije 10 dana, Italija je donijela svoju odluku jučer. Dakle, to govori o ispravnosti i pravovremenosti našega poteza. Budući da bi bez da je ovoga rata na Bliskom istoku bilo, naše mjere isticale one ranije 1. travnja, mi ćemo kao vlada razmotriti na koji način vidjeti s obzirom na planirani rast, da li ćemo mi te mjere produljiti, modificirati. U ovom trenutku i Ministarstvo gospodarstva i sve nadležne službe rade temeljite analize i po povratku u Brisel spremit ćemo se iz Brisela za Zagreb, spremit ćemo se za daljnje odluke. Ostale teme su naravno konkurentnost, situacija sa svim naporima nakon neformalnog vijeća koje je bilo također ovdje u Belgiji prije mjesec dana, kako učiniti europsko gospodarstvo konkurentnim. Cijene energenata je u biti jedna od najvažnijih. Ako su nam energenti skupi ili ako ovisimo previše o uvozu fosilnih goriva, Europa uvozi 90% nafte, skoro 90% plina, 67% ugljena, pa onda ovakva situacija sa zatvorenim hormuškim tjesnacom ima praktički trenutan utjecaj na funkcioniranje cijele ekonomije i gospodarstva i zbog toga mislim da moramo nastaviti tranziciju i energetsku transformaciju na obnovljive izvore energije, smanjivati ovisnost i ulagati upravo u obnovljive izvore energije koji su nam tu naši dostupni i naravno imaju manje ugljičnog otiska. Razgovarat ćemo i o situaciji u Ukrajini. Kao što vidite, situacija je jasna u pogledu stava Mađarske koja nastoji sada onemogućiti već donesenu odluku o zajmu od 90 milijardi eura za Ukrajinu, o kojem smo postigli konsenzus u prosincu, od čega je 60 milijardi za obranu Ukrajine, 30 milijardi za funkcioniranje države u razdoblju 26-27. Razlog bi trebao biti štete koje su nastale u ruskim napadima na naftovod Družba. Ono što je u međuvremenu sasvim jasno, a to je ono što je Hrvatska tvrdila već nekoliko godina, MOL naručuje tankere koji dolaze u Omišalj, njih je 13 naručeno, svi su neruske nafte, od toga ih je 4 do 5 već iskrcano, putem JANAF-a transportirano prema rafinerijama u Sasalombati i u Bratislavi. Ukupna količina nafte koja je otišla je otprilike 1,5 milijuna tona u mjesec dana. Ako to pomnožite sa 12 puta, onda ćete vidjeti da Hrvatska putem JANAF-a može isporučiti svu potrebnu naftu i Mađarskoj i Slovačkoj, čak kad bi njihove rafinerije radile u apsolutno 100% kapacitetu, što se nikada ne događa, dakle i više od toga. Prema tome, kao prijatelji Mađarske i Slovačke i dobar susjed, ono što im poručujemo da ćemo i građanima i Mađarske i Slovačke, da ćemo im osigurati sigurnost opskrbe koja je izrazito važna i putem JANAF-a dobit će svu potrebnu naftu koja je nužna. Ono što je smisao onih paketa sankcija i 2022. bila je da se da jedno vrijeme tranzicijsko, da svi de facto se reorijentiraju na naftu koja je ne ruskoga porijekla, a mi ovim dokazujemo da tu naftu možemo transportirati u nama dvije prijateljske zemlje. Evo, to je otprilike ono što je najbitnije, bit će još nekoliko drugih tema, ali Bliski istok, Ukrajina, konkurentnost su danas u fokusu. Pa vidjet ćemo. Ja slušam tu kampanju, slušam njegove poruke. Ono što je dobro za mađarsku javnost, za europsku javnost, da znaju da Mađarska neće ostati bez nafte. Hrvatska je tu ne kao sekundarni, ne kao alternativni, ne kao nepouzdani, ne kao nefunkcionalni, ne kao skupi transportni pravac, nego kao ako treba i jedini pravac, i pouzdan, i funkcionalan, i siguran, i u pogledu transportne tarife itekako povoljan, koji osigurava Mađarskoj i Slovačkoj da njihove ekonomije funkcioniraju normalno. Dakle, stvar je samo pitanja cijene nafte. Dakle, to je jedino pitanje o kojem se radi i koje vjerojatno svi razumiju više nego dobro. Ne znam ništa o tome. Pa mi smo spremni osiguravati ograničanje cijena dokle god treba. Dakle, nakon ruske agresije na Ukrajinu mislim da je čak bilo 95 odluka vlade u tom kontekstu. Prema tome, to je dokaz da smo tu za građane, za gospodarstvo, za očuvanje socijalne kohezije svih na okupu, pa onda time i rast i razvoj i veći broj radnih mjesta, sve ovo što su postignuća u zadnjih nekoliko godina. Što se tiče opskrbe, u ovom trenutku ima nafte, dakle ona se naručuje i pratimo u vrlo tjesnoj komunikaciji i koordinaciji sa INA-om čitav proces, tako da u ovom trenutku nema nikakvih problema kada je riječ o opskrbi. Vidjet ćemo. Nije žurba, šta, ovo je samo još jedan rat. Dakle, za razliku od njega, moje inicijative za sastancima Vijeća za nacionalnu sigurnost i Vijeća za obranu dolaze u trenucima kada su velike globalne krize koje imaju utjecaj na nas. Tako je bilo od 24. veljače pismenim putem kada je ruska vojska napravila invaziju na Ukrajinu, pa i tad nije bilo potrebe da se nađemo. Sada imate veliki rat na Bliskom istoku oko kojeg cijeli svijet treperi. Dakle, u ovom trenutku raste cijene nafte na $116 po barelu, za 50% raste cijene plina, rasti će onda cijena plina za sve subjekte, rasti će cijena struje, ali nema veze, ima vremena. Naćemo se kad bude. Dakle, vrlo je bitno da javnost razumije tu poruku. Znači, mi potičemo, iniciramo sastanak kada je stvarno bitno i kada smatramo da postoje razlozi zašto je bilo dobro da se i to tijelo nađe. Ali budući da sastanka neće biti, mi ćemo raditi svoje kao što radimo i do sada, štititi građane i gospodarstvo, pa kad završe izleti, možda sastanka i bude, a možda i mi ne budemo imali vremena u budućnosti. Please. We are already providing. Croatia has its Adriatic pipeline. The oil terminal is on the island of Krk. The pipeline is fully utilized now. It has already received orders from Hungarian oil company MOL for 13 tankers. 4 of those tankers have landed in Croatia. The oil from the tankers has been put in the tanks, later on in the pipeline, and transported to refinery in Sasalombata in Hungary or Bratislava in Slovakia. The capacity so far was 1.5 million tons, which means if you multiple in a month 1.5 multiple 12, it's very easy. It goes beyond 13 million tons, and the current total capacity, if both refineries in Sasalombata and in Bratislava operate every day, full time, their maximum capacity is now around 11 million tons, which means that Croatia can provide energy security and supply of oil to Hungary and Slovakia, even when Družba is not functioning. So as a friend, as a neighbor, as someone who wants to partner with our long-standing historic friends, Hungarians and Slovaks, we are here for them, for their citizens, for their economy, to provide them the oil they need.
What was the answer, Mr. Orban?
I'm sorry?
What was the answer, Mr. Orban, provided to them?
Well, everybody, he knows it very well. I mean, he knows that the oil is coming through Croatia to Hungary. It's not a secret.
So do you understand why he's then blocking?
Of course.
So what is the reason?
What is the reason?
Yeah.
The reason is that the European Union has its restrictive measures packages back from 2022 decided to gradually shift from being supplied by Russian fossil fuels, by Russian oil, and turning to other sources of supply. As you may be aware, there is a difference in the price of oil that you buy on the market from somewhere else compared to the one that goes through pipeline only from Russia via Ukraine to Slovakia and Hungary. And the difference in price, they say, it's 30% less. So perhaps this gives you a pretty solid answer where the problem lies. Thank you very much. See you.
Yeah, the only solution is to revise. Maybe I can help you. Is to revise the ETS1 system. This is the quickest solution. So we are discussing about competitiveness since Albert Wiesen, and so many proposals, single markets and capital union and energy highways and technologies. But all these measures will take a lot of time. And the only one which we are proposing is to exempt the intensive energetic industry from the ETS1 system. This is the only way.
Are you going to convince Mr. Orban to keep mind in Ukraine?
No, I am not going to convince Mr. Orban. This is his issue, not mine. I am here to fight for the European industry. And we are losing time. And it was very funny to hear now at the breakfast about illegal migration that after 10 years, all member states which were welcoming migrants wake up. And they said, we cannot repeat 2015. 10 years already. And now everybody is asking to close borders. So it's very funny to hear it, what we were saying in 2016. Now the other member states have the same opinion. So I hope that it will be not the same situation with energy prices, because we are seeing what is happening in Iran, in Qatar, everywhere, and this is a big problem for Europe.
On the ETS, what exactly, what industries exactly you want to exempt? The free allowances?
Yes, accept them from the system of allowances, because the Commission said in 2020 the forecast for the price of ETS1 was in 2030 26.50, and we had in January 87. So the Czech industry paid 13 billion euro for ETS allowances. So this is, of course, destroying industry. And Draghi report was saying clearly that the metallurgical industry and other industries are losing capacities, and of course they are not in competitiveness against China and the United States.
Thank you.
Of course we have, but you have to see how much cost the gas this morning or crude oil. Everything exploding, and after Israeli attack on this gas field and an Iranian attack on Qatar, this is, of course, again the problem of Europe. But this is now a general problem for all countries, because, of course, for fertilizer and ammonia supplies, everything is blocked. So we have to discuss it within, European Council has to discuss it. So we'll see. But what we want in any case is as soon as possible the revision of ETS1 system. And the forecast of Commission was completely wrong. And according to this forecast, we are now in the year of 2042. And this we can change quickly. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Vous avez dit BC. Bonjour, messieurs, dames. Merci beaucoup d'être là. Je vais vous dire quelques mots avant ce Conseil européen. D'abord, nous allons évoquer pendant ce Conseil les questions de compétitivité suite à la retraite stratégique que nous avons effectuée il y a quelques semaines. Là-dessus, le cap que nous défendons est clair. Les conclusions de ce Conseil sont tout à fait bonnes. Nous voulons plus de simplification, un approfondissement du marché unique européen pour aller plus vite, pour être plus compétitif. Nous voulons plus d'investissements, en particulier en matière d'innovation, de recherche, de technologie. Nous voulons une diversification de nos partenariats qui est nécessaire dans le contexte géopolitique que nous connaissons. Et nous défendons une préférence européenne dans des secteurs stratégiques clés pour protéger justement notre capacité à innover ou les capacités de production que les Européens ont. Le texte reflète ces priorités avec un agenda clair et des résultats dans les semaines et les mois qui viennent. Le deuxième sujet sur lequel je souhaitais insister, c'est la régulation des questions numériques. Comme vous le savez, nous sommes en train de parachever une réforme pour protéger nos enfants, nos adolescents de moins de 15 ans en France. Et il reviendra à la Commission européenne de prendre les dispositions pour pouvoir vérifier l'âge. C'est sa compétence. Nous avons une initiative que plusieurs États membres poursuivent. J'ai pu écrire aussi à la présidente de la Commission à cet égard. Et c'est un point important sur lequel nous avançons à plusieurs. Parlant des questions de régulation des réseaux sociaux, de l'intelligence artificielle, je défendrai dans ces conclusions et lors de cette session aussi la lutte contre les interférences et les manipulations de l'information. Il y a à chaque élection aujourd'hui en Europe des interférences qui troublent les processus électoraux. En ce moment même en Slovénie, le Premier ministre Golob, qui est en train de faire campagne pour avoir un nouveau mandat du peuple slovène, a été victime d'interférences caractérisées, de fausses informations et d'interférences de pays tiers. J'en ai parlé avec lui hier soir et ce matin. Les Européens doivent absolument se mobiliser pour protéger nos démocraties de ces interférences. C'est une nécessité, c'est ce bouclier démocratique dans lequel nous croyons. Nous aurons ensuite l'occasion d'évoquer évidemment la situation en Ukraine, d'abord parce que nous parlerons avec le président Zelensky. Et là-dessus, les choses sont simples. Je voudrais insister sur 2 points. Nous devons d'abord mettre en œuvre le prêt de 90 milliards d'euros qui a été décidé en décembre dernier. C'est une décision qui a été prise par les chefs d'État et de gouvernement. Elle doit être mise en œuvre. Et nous devons accroître nos capacités de production militaire. C'est ce que nous défendons depuis des mois. Nous avons mis les instruments en place parce qu'on sait que nous-mêmes, pour notre sécurité, et les Ukrainiens auront besoin de plus en plus de production européenne dans le contexte actuel. Le troisième sujet que nous évoquerons est évidemment la situation au Moyen-Orient. D'abord par une discussion avec le secrétaire général Guterres, qui nous permettra de revenir aussi sur la situation humanitaire à Gaza, que nous ne devons pas oublier et pour laquelle nous devons rester mobilisés. Et puis nous défendrons évidemment une désescalade, un retour à la stabilité au Moyen-Orient. Je voudrais dire ici qu'hier j'ai eu l'occasion d'échanger avec l'émir du Qatar, qui a été directement frappé et les capacités de production de gaz ont été frappées. Plusieurs autres pays du Golfe ont été frappés pour la première fois sur leur capacité de production, de la même manière que l'Iran avait été frappé le matin. Cette escalade est inconsidérée. J'ai pu hier ensuite parler avec le président Trump et il a, dans la nuit, lui-même appelé à cesser tous ces bombardements et ces attaques contre les infrastructures civiles, gaz, pétrole, mais aussi eau. Et je veux dire ici, nous défendons l'idée d'un moratoire sur les infrastructures civiles, les personnes civiles dans ce conflit et une désescalade rapide. Et alors que la région entre dans une période de fête religieuse, je pense que tous les esprits devraient se calmer et le combat devrait stopper au moins pour quelques jours pour essayer de redonner une chance aux négociations. Et c'est un point absolument clé, là aussi, de notre agenda. Et donc la France défend, comme à chaque fois, le retour à la négociation, le retour au dialogue, la désescalade dans la région. Voilà ce dont nous allons parler. Évidemment, nous aurons aussi l'occasion d'évoquer beaucoup d'autres sujets, les questions migratoires. Nous aurons un sommet zone euro, mais c'était les points essentiels que je voulais aborder dans ces propos introductifs. Oui.
Est-ce que vous avez le sentiment qu'un accord là-dessus peut se dégager et surtout est-ce que vous avez soumis ces laboratoires iraniens?
On est en train de le faire, j'espère que ça aboutira. Comme tous, vous le savez, cela ne dépend pas de nous. On s'engage, discute, mais nous n'avons pas lancé ces frappes et nous ne sommes pas évidemment impliqués. Nous sommes impliqués dans la défense des pays qui sont touchés quand nous avons des accords de paix, simplement de manière défensive. J'espère qu'en tout cas tout le monde reviendra à la raison, parce que tout cela évidemment a un impact pour tous les pays qui sont touchés. Ça a un impact sur le marché mondial. On le sait depuis le début de cette guerre, les prix du gaz et du pétrole ont augmenté, parce qu'on parle de 20% de ce qui alimente le marché mondial qui passe par Hormuz. Mais si les capacités de production elles-mêmes sont détruites, il y aura un impact beaucoup plus durable de cette guerre. Donc nous allons continuer de nous mobiliser et évidemment nous avons passé aussi ce message aux Iraniens et je souhaite, c'est pour ça qu'il y ait des discussions aussi directes qui puissent s'établir entre Américains et Iraniens sur ce point.
Plusieurs pays, Monsieur le Président, ont pris des mesures en Europe pour aider leurs concitoyens face à la hausse de l'énergie. Est-ce qu'il va falloir faire la même chose ?
Écoutez, c'est au gouvernement de faire ce travail dans les temps qui viennent. Je pense que d'abord, tout ce qu'il faut faire, c'est de répondre aux causes profondes de ce qui se passe. Il y a aujourd'hui une guerre qui bloque le transit de gaz et de pétrole et il y a aujourd'hui une guerre qui est en train de détruire certaines de ses capacités. Donc il faut absolument réussir à stopper cette situation, à ce qu'on retourne vers un moment de discussion, de négociation et à ce qu'ensuite, dans un cadre approprié, international, non conflictuel, on puisse progressivement permettre au transport maritime de refonctionner par le détroit d'Ormuz pour permettre au pétrole, au gaz, mais aussi aux engrais de recirculer. Ensuite, il y a les mesures qu'on peut prendre pendant cette période à court terme. On l'a fait en libérant des réserves stratégiques sur le pétrole et on va continuer de piloter cela finement en concertation. Donc, c'est la coordination des États, à la fois qui produisent ou qui ont des réserves stratégiques. Ensuite, il y a les mécanismes qu'on peut activer au niveau européen. On va le faire cet après-midi en discutant justement de nos mécanismes pour trouver des flexibilités. Et enfin, c'est la responsabilité des gouvernements de pouvoir accompagner les personnes ou les publics qui sont les plus touchés par cette crise. Il y a des discussions qui sont en cours avec nos agriculteurs, avec nos pêcheurs en particulier. Mais ça, c'est au gouvernement de le piloter et qu'on viendra dans les jours, les semaines qui viennent, en fonction de l'évolution de cette situation, de pouvoir apporter les réponses qui conviennent.
Il faut changer les objectifs de stockage de gaz, Monsieur le Président.
Écoutez, aujourd'hui, il faut d'abord avoir une analyse claire de la situation. Il faut essayer au maximum de préserver, de sauver les capacités de production. Et il faut ensuite donner des perspectives claires sur la réouverture des voies de circulation. Et après, l'Agence internationale de l'énergie coordonne un travail dans ce sens. Je parle à chaque fois à Viktor Orban et je souhaite, nous, qu'on avance sur le soutien à l'Ukraine, qui en a besoin, et qu'on tienne notre parole sur les 90 milliards d'euros de prêts.
Plusieurs Français ont été arrêtés à Dubaï parce qu'ils ont filmé la guerre. Est-ce que vous avez des nouvelles d'eux et que fait la France ?
Nous sommes dans une discussion avec les autorités, évidemment sur le plan administratif et judiciaire, pour que leur situation soit réglée. Nous avons lancé les démarches avec notre ambassade et l'ensemble des équipes pour que nos compatriotes, d'abord que la situation soit clarifiée et que nos compatriotes puissent être justement libérés dans les plus brefs délais.
Une question sur les municipales en France. Vous avez été accusé par un candidat socialiste à la mairie de Paris d'être intervenu personnellement sur la candidate Sarah Knafo pour qu'elle se désiste. Je le disais à démenti ce matin, mais quelle est votre réponse?
Écoutez, ces propos n'ont aucun sens. Ils déshonorent un peu la personne qui les dit comme ça à l'emporte-pièce, parce que c'est pas sérieux. Donc non, je ne connais pas Madame Knafo à titre personnel et je n'interviens pas du tout dans ces municipales. La discussion que nous sommes en train d'avoir montre que j'ai largement autre chose à faire. Donc les municipales doivent se tenir dans le cadre le plus respectueux, le plus républicain, mais tout ça est strictement faux et je crois n'est pas à la hauteur. Look, first of all, mentioning Iraq and the situation, I want to pay tribute to our soldier, Major Frion, killed by the pro-Iranian militias in Iraq. France is present in Iraq and has been present in Iraq since 2015 in order to fight against terrorist groups and Daesh and in order to support the Iraqi sovereignty. We are very proud of this commitment in Baghdad, in Erbil. I had the occasion to speak several times with President Barzani as well with Prime Minister Soudani. And we stand with Iraq and with its sovereignty and its territorial integrity. What we ask is total clarity in the fight against any militias targeting French people and French soldiers, because these people are targeting de facto the Iraqis' interests, and they are spoiling the interests of Iraqi people. Now, I really believe that Iraq should be apart from this war and preserve this sovereignty, and all the groups interfering in this war are taking a great responsibility. Je vais répondre peut-être. Est-ce qu'il y a d'autres questions sur la situation? Je vais rejoindre. Je pense que le mécanisme dit ETS, en particulier ETS 1, est un bon mécanisme parce qu'il permet de faire la transition en préservant la compétitivité, donc il réconcilie nos objectifs de compétitivité et de climat. Il faut donc le préserver. Par contre, dans le contexte actuel, nous devons trouver des flexibilités, des souplesses qui nous permettent, dans l'environnement international que nous connaissons, de répondre à la crise. Mais il faut garder la structure, garder la philosophie, garder l'approche et ne pas perdre de vue justement ce qui est aussi important pour les Européens. Merci beaucoup, je vais retrouver mes collègues. Merci beaucoup. Pardon ? L'objectif, c'est d'apporter notre soutien plein et entier au peuple libanais, aux autorités libanaises. Et au fond, nos objectifs sont simples. Nous voulons aider le Liban dans son intégrité territoriale, sa souveraineté, sa sécurité. Pour ce faire, il faut aider les autorités libanaises, politiques et militaires, à reprendre le contrôle, à avoir le monopole des armes, comme l'a dit très clairement le président Aoun. Et donc, leur permettre d'orchestrer ce travail, de récupérer les armes, toutes les capacités, et de les enlever au Hezbollah. La deuxième chose, c'est ensuite de convaincre Israël que ce travail est à faire par les Libanais et les forces armées libanaises, et non pas en violant la souveraineté territoriale libanaise ou en bombardant le territoire libanais. Il y a des propositions, il y a un travail. Comme vous le savez, il y a un mécanisme de coordination qui existe avec les États-Unis et la France. Et c'est dans ce cadre, avec les États-Unis, que nous continuons de travailler et nous aidons le président Aoun, le Premier ministre Nawaf Salam, et nous sommes totalement à leur côté. Merci beaucoup. On a en tout cas avancé, moi je crois beaucoup à ce projet, je pense qu'il est pertinent stratégiquement, et je vais vous dire, les armées françaises et allemandes pensent qu'il c'est pertinent. Les industriels, je les ai vus, vous disent c'est pertinent. Ils n'arrivent pas à s'entendre. Notre travail, c'est de faire en sorte qu'ils s'entendent. Et donc on a décidé ensemble de lancer une mission de rapprochement d'Airbus et de Dassault dans les semaines qui viennent, qui doit se faire de manière calme, respectueuse, pour trouver justement les voies de convergence. Mais le cap stratégique est clair et il fait consensus entre toutes les parties prenantes. Merci beaucoup.
Grazie.